Hi.
Hey, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
We will get started in just a second. Give you guys time to get in here. Especially since this is not our normal time for the book club breakdown. There's one person. So, what I want to do is for everybody that's joining us, if you could go ahead and comment on this video what time and day you would like to see these breakdowns. We're going to be doing Fridays, but now we're kind of thinking maybe it's not going to be the best day for everybody. So if there's a better day that works for everybody, go ahead and leave that in the comments below. We will see what the most popular answer is. Maybe see about moving this thing so everybody can be a part of the SUFE book club. If you haven't joined us yet so far, we are reading The Watsons Go to Birmingham.
And it's getting intense.
Yeah. We are through, we're up to the first 100 pages, which I think is a really interesting way that this kind of shook out. Anybody else notice that 99 was the last page we read? It was like 100, and it's like, I don't know. I just like nice even breaks like that.
I honestly did not notice that.
Yeah.
And I think also it broke pretty nicely, like in the content. There's a nice like foreshadowing at the very end. That it was a kind of a nice like even break for nice cliffhanger.
All right. If there was anybody that didn't join us the last time we did one of these breakdowns, like I said, we're reading The Watsons Go to Birmingham. We've got the Watsons, a nice little family. We've got little Joey, who's the little girl, Mama and Dad, Byron, the older brother, and Kenny, who is the narrator. It's not totally clear what their ages are, but that's who's older and who's younger. They're going to school. They live in Flint, Michigan. Rufus and Cody come up from, was it Arkansas? Arkansas. Yeah. And then that draws some nice comparisons because this is in the early 60s. Draws some comparisons between what it's like in Michigan, which is obviously north, and Arkansas, and the mothers from Alabama. So draw some nice things there. So we're actually going to pick up today in chapter 4. There's not a lot that happens in these couple of chapters, but I think that we got some stuff to talk about. It's really getting into the characters. I can't remember. I think it's in chapter 6. There's some really nice interactions between Byron and Kenny, some more brother manly kind of stuff. But in chapter 4, we're really talking about how Kenny and Joey are dressed in all these layers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's obviously really cold in Flint, Michigan. And so their mother, being from the South, is very overprotective. She's not used to the cold. And so she puts them in multiple shoes, shirts, jackets, and coats on top of all of that. And they're actually sweating by the time they get to school.
Yeah, I'm imagining like what is it, A Christmas Story?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
I was just imagining the kid, like because he was talking about Joey was
brother
whining the whole time, and his little brother whined the whole time. Like,
Yes.
And the one time they pushed him down and he couldn't get back up because he had so much on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was all I could imagine that whole time that they were talking.
I think Byron's input into that entire sequence is like the most funniest part because he's like, yeah, the people who are from like the South, their blood just gets so thin, and in the middle of the night, these trucks come creeping up, and they just start dumping these cold bodies that are in the snow and dead and frozen into the trucks, and you don't see it because it's in the middle of the night. And it's like his like never-ending torture of Kenny, whether it's psychological torture, it's physical torture. It just like it never ends. It's ongoing. He is like the perfect protagonist to this story. Like I guess antagonist, right? He's the antagonist of this story because he's such an agitator. And he just makes you just like want to shake him. Like, what is wrong with you?
I think that it's interesting that you frame it that way because from some contextual clues. So first, it's Byron and Kenny standing on the porch, and he's talking, and Kenny's telling Byron about how he has to help Josie get all their clothes off, and when they start this conversation, Kenny is swept up in the mysticism of his older brother telling him this story, but it kind of, to me, it seemed like Byron was telling this for Joey so that she wouldn't be mad that she had to wear all these clothes. So, but I think it can be both things because he is always trying to mess with Kenny and get in his head, and I think he accomplished both of those things.
Well, it's kind of funny, like with this chapter, how with them talking about the layers and this being the glove chapter where he gets his glove stolen. This is the first time that you really see Byron caring for Kenny, and it's like it's not a direct way. It's very much the older brother who is that bully kind of way. So like the way that both the scene where he's talking to Joey, like he's kind of being nice to his little brother in taking that agitation out. Like he's being kind of mean to her and getting her to believe these things that aren't true, but also taking a load off of him and his agitation. But then to take down what was his name, Larry Dunn?
Yes, Larry Dunn.
Yeah, that's the first time that you really see him just like, this is my little brother, you're not going to mess with him kind of thing, even though it's not stated specifically.
Larry Dunn is the king of the school, but Byron is the god
of the school. Yeah.
And another reminder, Larry Dunn, here is your place. You do not mess with me or anybody that I care about.
Also,
I want to say two things before we get off too far off topic. Is that I really enjoyed these couple chapters because I think it did a really good job of fleshing out the relationships between all the siblings. And then you finally get to see Byron be that big brother, and Shmiki said like he's the antagonist, but I see him as more like a big brother figure after these chapters. And then I loved when he was telling that story about cleaning up all the frozen people off the streets, because it just reminded me of like my sister telling me a story like that when I was a kid. We grew up and there was this giant like grain bin on the highway in between Lamont and Sedalia, and she told me it was a witch's castle. And that, like, I had to hold my breath or something while we drove past the witch's castle, or then I'd be cursed for life or something like that. And it just reminded me of like my older siblings telling me these crazy stories and like freaking me out.
Yeah, and so then they talk about how quiz.
Yeah, sorry, don't want to like go too far back into the previous chapters, but I like how you guys are making the connection of this is the first time that you see Byron being that older brother figure. However, to me, I think he showed it the first time when he went to read in Byron's class.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, instead of picking on him, he's like, hey, they should be paying me for that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I feel like that to me was the first time that he's like, all right, I'm kind of proud of you. I'm not going to tell you I'm proud of you, but I'm proud of you.
That's definitely
good job, little bro.
Yeah.
Sure.
He definitely has, the only way I can relate this to, not because I talk a lot about the Rugrats, he has an Angelica complex where it's like only Angelica can pick on the babies, but nobody else can come in and pick on her dumb babies. And so it's like he comes in when it's like opportune.
I'm definitely looking forward to more of the book being broken down in terms of the Rugrats characters, but yeah, Mike.
I saw a direct correlation to, I don't know if any of you have seen F is for Family.
Yeah.
But the structure of that is literally older brother, little sister, and the little brother in I think the very first episode is getting picked on by his bully, and the little sister runs, gets the big brother, and he comes and beats up the bully. Like,
Hey.
it's the exact same situation. So you get that really tough character who, as soon as he like gets the little brother or the beats up the bully, the little brother reaches for him and is like, "Thanks for helping me," and he punches the little brother. Like,
Yes.
it's one of those like there's it's not that he wants really the little brother to know that he cares, but he's not also going to let the little brother get beaten up if he can stop it, you know.
To me, that was almost a disciplinarian act on him when he hits Kenny, because it's almost like, this is me hitting you for letting this man or this boy come against you in public in front of all these people. It's almost like, you've embarrassed me, so I need to embarrass you because you are still connected to me. Even though I don't really claim you, I don't really have any like interest in you and what you do at this school, you're still a part of my representation. So it's almost like it's almost like a man up to Kenny to stop allowing, Larry to do these things, or anybody to do these things to him.
Well, as Sam said, these chapters are all really great for fleshing out the relationship between all of the different siblings. And so I think it's a great time to move on to chapter 5, which, in my personal opinion, has one of the greatest chapter titles in the history of writing itself.
Absolutely.
There's Nazi parachutes attack America and get shot down over the Flint River by Captain Byron Watson and his flamethrower of death.
Oh, yeah. What's a mouthful, but that is a great title.
And not only that, I wanted to point out here in terms of the literary device, he writes that because it's the name of the chapter, right?
Yes.
But it's also the name of the movie that Byron is making when he's playing with the soldiers and lighting their parachutes on fire and flush them down the toilet. And so as Kenny is narrating this, he has to write this out like 4 different times. And it was almost like just the thing that I thought of was like he was trying to hit a word count. And it's like, if I just write this long chapter title out 4 times, that'll help me get to my 1,500 words or whatever I wanted this to be. But yeah, so I think it's really interesting. We talked about Byron as the older brother, the bully, the god of the school, but here he is still playing make believe with army guys, just like a little kid would do. So I think that's really cool to kind of put him in his place, so to speak. So yeah, he's still, to everybody else, with all these kids, he's the top of the top, but he's still just a kid himself. So I think that's really interesting. This is not the first time that he has been played with fire. Mama has warned him multiple times not to be on fire, and her as a young girl, her house burned down. And so for 2 years, they had to wear clothes that smelled like smoke. Which, you can kind of think for yourself whether or not that's true, or if that's, just parents embellishing to, kind of give the lesson. But yeah, Kenny watches him do this whole time. And eventually Mom hears the toilet flushing so often, because every time a little army guy floats down into the toilet, he's got to flush him away so nothing catches on fire. Mama doesn't like it. She grabs him, basically levitates him down the stairs by his neck.
That
like I'm alive,
I could picture that. I think that happened to me once in my life.
Another example of how the author is able to infuse the comedy into every part of this. You're not going 2 or 3 minutes reading this book without laughing at something. And so she carries him downstairs and tries to send both of the other kids into the kitchen to grab a book of matches and some Vaseline and a bandage. But they all know what she's going to do, because she swore to God that the next time this happened, she was going to burn him. Both the kids, Joey, out of love for her brother, was like, no, I can't do that. And then Kenny was like, if I do that, he's going to pound me afterwards. So I'm not going anywhere. You can go get it yourself. And so she does. And comes back, and she's trying to burn him on his finger, and it's like I said earlier, when you've got Byron being put in his place by he's just a kid. Now here's mom, and she's the god of the house.
Yeah.
He's like, here's my finger, burn it, and that's all you want to do, and I'm going to count myself lucky. But Joey keeps burning out the match before he can get burned. So
yeah, I think that's cool that you can, like, you see Byron kind of standing up for Kenny, and then and in the actual home itself, you see Joey multiple times throughout this reading standing up for Byron.
Joey's the savior of the house. She saves everybody. Or she tries.
How Joey immediately, as soon as the mom says something about how she swore to God, so she has to do it. Like,
and then she was like, "Well, I guess you have to now."
Yeah, but she was still sobbing. Like, she didn't like it. She was still like sobbing profusely.
Yes, like that makes sense. You gotta burn this child now.
I think that Byron's disposition during this time in which he's like sitting here waiting for this punishment to come, and Kenny's like, you could like leave, just go and like run, and he doesn't run. I think that talks a lot about what it means to be Black and what it means to kind of always have this tough exterior, that even in the face of fear, you can't be scared. It's like you can't look afraid, and you can't look like you're giving off this essence of fear. And this whole time he sits there waiting to take this punishment, and we don't know if it's going to come or not. We don't know if mom's about to actually burn him, but I almost can feel exactly what he is feeling, because it's like I've been in the situation with it, like even my own parents. Right before you get in the whooping, you can't show like anything other than I could take this. It's not gonna hurt me. And it's like that toughness that comes with like this like strength that comes with all of that super masked kind of persona that we have to give off.
Right. I think there's like a little bit of like an undertone that kind of connects back to us as growing up as Black children. We know, and like I can picture myself thinking if I was Kenny, and I know my mom never did anything like this. Mom, if you're watching, I love you. But
I was never been abused.
Right, but like it's like if Kenny would have took off, or Byron would have took off,
it would have been worse.
10 times worse.
Yes.
So he just knew. He's like, Kenny's like, you could run. He's like, no, I can't. You and I both know that I can't run.
When she catches up to me, it will be hell to pay.
This is where I sleep. I have to come home at some point.
Yes. That's that part that got me, just like watching him endure whatever it is that he's going to endure or have to endure. And I was like, I thought for sure, just as how it's been written, I said, she is going to burn this child. Like, she is really going to do it. She's so adamant. She's going to make this is going to be successful for her. And I was like, at what point is there some part of her humanity that's going to come in and say, this is my child, even though he's taking me to a point? Is she going to bring it back and say, I could have done this to you, but I chose not to do it. I didn't know what was going to happen.
No, it seemed like he was fully committed to doing it, but Joey wouldn't let him.
And I think what you guys were just talking about also is shown in the previous chapter, which kind of skipped over with Larry Dunn, and how Kenny kept saying he was so tough when Byron was beating him up, because he just stood there and took it.
Yes, he just took it.
And I think you can see there's like a lot of description of Larry Dunn at that point, with the holes in his shoes that are covered in cardboard, and his really bad clothes that ripped when Byron lifted his arms up, and just like Larry's home life and how that led him to kind of be the bully that he is.
The bus driver was talking about his mom.
Oh my God. What did he say about his mom? He's like,
he didn't say anything. He's threatened to. He's like, what I know about your mama.
I would say,
kids, like,
but it's enough to make Larry shut the hell up and sit down. And I was like, now in my head, I'm like, what is his mom out here doing in these streets?
Right.
Ooh, I hope they touch on that. But
who was that? What's that phenomenon? I think it's one of those opera composers where if you see a gun in the first act, the gun has to go off in like the second or third act. You know what I'm talking about? No.
Yeah, it's like the smoking gun.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a literary device for sure that's even used in writing scripts. It's like we put this thing that we don't know what's going to happen to it, but we show it consistently enough in like the first act, and then we do something with it in the the next following acts to where it's like it does go off like a smoking gun. It does explode. So it's a strong literary device that's been around for forever.
So playing with fire isn't the only bad thing that Byron has done in the chapters. In fact, if there was one like universal theme over these 4 chapters, it's Byron doing bad things.
Yeah.
So we get to chapter 6, and it starts off with Mama's making dinner. She wants to send the boys to the store to get milk, bread, and some tomato paste. And they say, well, all right, well, give me some cash. She goes, well, you just have to sign on this list. And so Byron flips out. He's like, oh, no, we're on welfare. And she's like, we're not on welfare. Shut up. Go to the store. Oh, and for anybody that was tuned in last time, I'm keeping track of how many times the author uses the phrase ready, aim, fire. It's like getting tied to a pole. So 4 times in this chapter. If you have to ask Mama a 3rd time to repeat what she said, you might as well just tie yourself to a pole and say ready, aim, fire. So it's an amazing, just literary device just to, imagine what that would be like, getting a verbal scolding that is as potent as a firing squad. But it does the trick. Paints the picture. So
I think I just want to talk a little bit about the welfare situation, because I think that was like the part of this particular chapter that I'm like, I kind of understand what he's saying, because I just, growing up and having people that who were on welfare or WIC as like growing up was like a big deal for certain kids or certain families, and like what it must be like for that family to have to go into a line and then pay with something that isn't consistently like, regular good old American tender and currency, and have people be, aware that that's how you're paying for something, and the shame that comes on. And you see that with Byron, because he's like, I don't want to be in the front of the line. He pushes Kenny to the front. He's like, and then Kenny's like, feels that shame that comes from like Byron's reaction. So he's like, yeah, I just want to write this on the welfare list. And, it's like all secretive and quiet just so that they can, avoid the shame, even though it's likely that most of the families in their community, in their neighborhood, would be on welfare or some kind of governmental assistance. Yeah.
Yeah. For sure.
So it's just that feeling from the outside world of, what it is supposed to be like in your family.
So as it turns out, though, it was not a welfare list.
It's not.
It is just something that the grocery store owner worked out with some families, so that instead of, they just walk over to get groceries, 3-4 times a week, just paying, basically a tab once a week instead of having to pay, so that you can send your kids down, make that a little bit easier. So, yeah, like Shamika said, Byron makes Kenny go up and sign his name when he ducks off and goes to read comic books or whatever. But then as soon as they find out that it's not welfare, Byron decides he is going to go back and just buy a bunch of stuff and just sign his name, because it's as good as money to whatever, a 13-year-old.
Right.
Yeah.
He gets a couple of these bags of cookies and just starts. I think that's how you identify too many cookies, is that not only did he eat an entire bag, but now he started to throw them at things.
Yeah.
What would normally be like a very,
special thing
is now their weapons.
Yeah.
So he's throwing them at Kenny, and he's hanging out in an apple tree, which I think was pretty cool. Just be hanging out in an apple tree.
All right.
And so then he offers Kenny some cookies, and Kenny is obviously, wary of his older brother being nice to him for any reason whatsoever, until he realizes that he's already eaten an entire bag of these cookies. So they have a couple of cookies, and then they see this bird. Byron starts chucking cookies at this bird. And he kills the bird, which was sad. Nobody wants to see a bird die. And then
I think they just
didn't he mention that?
Yeah, he was
like the coolest bird.
Is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I've got so much respect for this bird. Whomp. And because he said that like they're not bothered by anything. They'll just kind of sit there and be cool. And so the bird falls down, it's dead, and he immediately goes over to vomit, which he blames on having eaten a bag and a half of these sweet cookies, which I'm sure had something to do with it. Like, not 100% a lie, but you can also tell that he's very upset about having killed this bird, because he then goes and buries it. So that's you see all different sorts of sides of Byron in these couple of chapters. You see, as the god of the school, as the older brother, as just a kid, someone being punished by their parents, and finally here is a vulnerable human being himself. So I think that was really interesting to see, rounding out all sides of Byron.
He's definitely a complex character.
Yeah.
Definitely.
No, you could easily tell where this was going as soon as Kenny walks out and Byron starts to make the realization that he can get free stuff, or what he thinks is free stuff. And I'm surprised they haven't, even in the next chapter, haven't come back and had that moment yet. That was what I was waiting for in that chapter, was the realization of the father going down, being like, why do I owe $20 extra kind of thing.
Yeah.
No spoilers.
But see, that's also compared to where we are right now, I don't see a lot of discipline that comes Byron's way. It's like Byron is always able to get away scot-free, and it's like that. Because of that, I think that's a lot of where the author is speaking to, spare the rod, you're spoiling this child, because he never gets disciplined, he never gets corrected. Even mom doesn't follow through. It seems on her own punishment, and nothing is followed through with him. And all he learns as a result of that is, the rules don't apply to me. Nothing ever touches me. And so it's like, whereas you have Kenny, where he's so scared of almost anything that could go wrong, Byron has none of those inhibitions whatsoever.
Which I think is an amazing way to transition into chapter 7. We can go back. I think 6 and 7 kind of tie together. So if you had anything else to say about chapter 6, we can kind of work it in here. But in chapter 7, basically, Byron goes and gets this hairdo. The conch do, called it butter. Get that butter a couple of times, I think. So I thought that was interesting to see all of the different slang that was thrown about in this chapter, which is really cool. But so his parents didn't want him to do this. It was something that was known that they didn't want him to do this, and he thought, he took it upon himself to do it anyway. To Shamika's point, what are they going to do to me, basically? And so the mom was kind of incredulous about it. She was just like, "Oh, you did this, huh? All right, we'll see. We'll see what happens." So dad comes home, and there's a nice moment between mom and dad where they were talking. It was from the kid's perspective. Obviously, you can hear from upstairs dad come home, take his boots off, and sit in a chair. And then you can hear a second chair swoosh as mom sits on top of him, and they're just hugging and catching up and stuff. And that was really sweet to see. And then she's trying to tell him about what Byron did, and I thought it was so cool too. He said she didn't even raise her voice to call Byron because she knew that they were all listening from the top of the stairs. And so he comes down and he shows the hair, and he goes, "All right, well, let's go." Basically, he just goes upstairs and locks the door in the bathroom and takes the scissors and gives him the old straight razor shave, Alder and me and Micah. He said it was shiny. You put some aftershave on it, you could hear Byron yelling. And so that was that.
I mean, there's a lot of that touches on culture and community and so much. It's just like, I remember a conch is technically like our modern day version of what we would consider a perm or a relaxer, because it takes the texture right out of your hair. And we forget, in our time in history, a conch was really popular in the 60s because we're starting to see a lot of artists who are of color are putting these processes in their hair so that they can be more mainstream. They can cross over a little bit more. They have a more of a cooler, more white look, technically, because you're relaxing your hair to make it look straight. But what I know it as is the Just For Me relaxer that I got when I was 6 years old that burned my scalp. And it was, we call it the creamy crack, because it really it kicks in there and it hurts and it burns. And if you don't put the Vaseline around your edges just right, it's painful. But it is to make your hair more straight. And we talk a lot about how in certain areas, in our community across the country, we had to initiate a Crown Act, because for people of color, wearing your natural texturized hair is not considered professional, or is not considered adequately going into the mainstream. You don't blend in well, you don't assimilate to the culture. So for him to do that, I wonder what was going on in Byron's, head other than his own, I guess, delinquency that made him want to conk his hair.
It mentioned in there that Kenny, I think, mentions in there the only other person he knows that has a conch is Byron's best friend. So
Buford. Yeah.
It's kind of interesting that like Byron, being the god of the school, is still open to that peer pressure.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's as much pressure or if it's really just he saw it and he actually wanted it himself. But
so obviously what we're here for, right, is to delve deeper into these kind of topics and figure out the why and what the greater meaning of all this is. And I think there's two ways to look at it. We can do that, and Shamika's excuse me, Shamika's touched on that and all of the social factors at the time why he would do that. And then I think the other way we can look at it is the actual character's motivation for these things, which is kind of what Mike is touching on. I just want to add something to that avenue real quick. He was talking about how his parents didn't want him to do it and that they were squares. So he thinks this is something that he can do to be cool.
Yeah.
Now we can add on to that, the social context and be like, what is cool and what in terms of the era and things like that. But I think it's interesting just to think about it in terms of the character's individual motivations for it.
Yeah, and I think like Shamika said, this was like a more mainstream thing that like the cool people were doing to more assimilate into white culture and cross over. So I'm sure that's something he saw as this rebellious kid who doesn't listen to his parents anymore and he thinks his parents are squares. To think, oh, my best friend has this, I'm going to go ahead and get it, and I don't care about parents.
It really speaks to like who is Buford's parents as well. But
I think it's interesting that Shamika, you just said that Byron seems to be getting away with all this kind of stuff. He doesn't seem to have the consequences, but I feel like this is building to something revolving around Byron that will have a lot of consequences. And I think that's
going to totally change once he gets
down. Yeah, and I think that's where this chapter kind of ends. Is they're having a conversation with Grandma, who is a new character, hasn't been introduced. It's like a secretive conversation. They make us leave, and they're talking as grown-ups. So it seems like there is some big consequence brewing behind all of these things, and I think that's why these chapters are laid out as they are.
A little calm before the storm.
And I think it's great. I love that you mentioned that, Sam, about Byron's lack of discipline, because I think if we are going to be making this inevitable trip down to Birmingham, we know that we're in the Deep South. We know that that's where we're headed. That what we're looking for seeing is, unfortunately, an undisciplined Black child in Birmingham is a child that could be opening themselves up for risk that can lead to your death. Because you don't want to be undisciplined and Black in the Deep South during Jim Crow.
Very true. So let's touch on now. I think we covered what we read so far. Any thoughts about what's coming up? How these kind of themes are going to play into the next couple of chapters, the rest of the book? Thoughts like that?
I'm just very excited to see them get to and the reasoning to go to Birmingham.
Why are we down there?
Yeah.
I want you to know that it's very hard for me to hold my tongue while we're discussing these things. No spoilers, nothing like that. Nothing, as far as I know, nothing has been spoiled so far. But
anybody who doesn't know, Quiz has read this like 5 or 6 times. He was the one who recommended this for us, so he's kind of an expert here, which is both a blessing and a curse, because he can help us break stuff down, but he might also relate something to something that happens later and totally blow our minds. So.
Right. So I'm gonna let's get a few more chapters in, and then I feel like I'll be a little bit more able to talk freely.
Yeah, I am looking forward to the next couple chapters, because I think what chapter 9 or 10 is called "The Watsons Go to Birmingham." So I think that's when these next couple chapters, again, I really think this was a nice segue, a nice place to break, because I think there's a good cliffhanger that's going to lead to something really big in the next couple chapters.
Like 1,500 miles big.
Like, yeah, 1,500 miles big.
It's exciting stuff.
I'm ready for it. This is actually, I said this last week. I was aware of the fact that this was something that Quiz had read when he was younger, but I'm every chapter that we get into it, I'm just so enthralled with this book.
Yeah, I think it's, for me personally, it's like I mentioned earlier, it's bringing up all these memories from my own childhood that I haven't thought about in who knows how long. And I think just the perspective of this fourth grader being the narrator, I really, really enjoy, because it lends itself to some really unique styles of comedy, of just like the pure innocence of a fourth grade mind. Like when Mama was telling Byron to go to the store and pick up stuff, and she repeated herself once, because when she's annoyed, that's what she does. She just repeats herself. She doesn't answer your question. And then the third time is she says something along, is like the loudest silence you'll ever hear coming from Mama.
Right.
Which I always thought that was hilarious, and just that, like, the innocence of a fourth grader's mind lends itself to some really awesome comedy, but also really like makes me more invested in the story, because it kind of relates to my own childhood and memories that I haven't thought about in a long time.
Definitely.
All right, guys. Well, I think that about does it for today. Don't forget, even if you're watching this after we're done being live, go ahead and comment on it and say what day would work best for you guys. We want as many people to be able to watch live, because, and I'll go ahead and open it now. If anybody has any questions about what we talked about, anything that they want to add to the discussion, we just want to get as many people involved in this live as possible. Excuse me. But that doesn't mean that, if you can't make it for whatever reason, come on back, and these will all be on our Facebook page. You can go ahead and watch on your own. You can send us, a direct message for ideas. If you want to input something, maybe we'll shout you out, as the kids say. So, does anybody have anything to add real quick? We got a couple of people in here. Anything that they want to say about the book? Is everybody keeping up with us? We're trying to keep it pretty short. And like I said, the book reads really well. I'm really entertained with it. And it's almost worse to, sometimes when you have it's almost like an assignment and it's hard to pick up in the first place. It's hard to stop where you have to stop for the week. So, all right. Well, as of right now, we're going to be back on Friday at 7.
Next 4 chapters.
Yeah, next 4 chapters. So what is this? 8, 9, 10, and 11. Make sure you have it read by next time.
Yes. And while we have you guys here, just want to remind you that March has so many great events coming up, and we just want you guys to be involved. Please go to our events page on Facebook, look through all of that stuff, and read ahead, watch ahead, and pay attention to the great poetry we have coming out every single day for this month up until the 22nd of March. So just come and get involved. We really want you guys to be with us and engage with us, because we are out here just trying to do the work.
Yeah, so it's actually really cool. In March, we're going to be releasing a poem per day, and then the 5 most interacted poems at the end of the month, we're going to do like a breakdown, just like this, and we're going to talk about them, our thoughts and stuff on them. If you guys don't pick the right ones, I will supersede with the ones that I want in there. So make sure you're voting on some good poems. No, I'm just kidding. I respect the democratic process. So really excited to do that. We're going to be releasing some great poems. I know Shamika has already shown us a handful of amazing poems, including today's post that legitimately moved me to tears the first time I heard it. It was just amazing. And I said right there, this needs to be the first poem that we do. So there it is for you guys, a taste of what is to come. So be sure that you like, comment, share all of those, and be looking out every day for some more up until the 22nd, because we gotta have time to break them down and stuff like that. So,
and to add on to that, some of them are slam poems, and they will have like live readings on YouTube. And we're creating a playlist on our YouTube channel of all the poetry for this month. I think it's Feminist Poems for March 2021 is what it's called. So if you want to like check out, like in hindsight, any of the poems, you can go on. They'll live on that playlist, and also give our YouTube channel subscribe and check out our videos there as well.
Fantastic. Well, guys, thanks for joining us. And we'll see you on Friday.
Bye.
Bye.
Guys.